Do you want the government to know how you spend your money?
A UK digital pound would be a new form of digital money.
I am going to pay Paul the $500 I owe him using Central Bank Digital Currency jam decks.
Do you want them able to program your money to limit how you spend it?
You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable.
I certainly don't. The central bank digital currency will make all of that perfectly possible with the greatest loss of financial freedom we've ever experienced. Stay tuned to find out how it could affect you. A central bank digital currency is a form of currency issued by a central bank rather than a commercial bank such as Barclays. Unlike conventional currency represented by coins and notes in your pocket, a CBDC will be represented on a device such as a mobile phone or a computer, although you could move money between the two. In our new report, CBDC, a privacy eroding digital pound, we've found that over 130 central banks around the world are either researching, piloting, or have actually launched a central bank digital currency already. So buckle up as I take you on a trip around the world to look at how this vast web of financial surveillance is being woven. Israel's attitude to cash and financial privacy is worrying, particularly for a democracy. The development of the digital shekel is coupled with the drive to cut down cash use in the Israeli economy, and the CBDC is even being touted as a measure to cut tax dodging. In Israel, it is already illegal for any transaction over 6,000 new shekels, around £1,250, to take place in cash. And even private citizens can only exchange up to 15,000 shekels, or around £3,100 in cash. Privacy is not a key focus for the Bank of Israel, which has been open in saying that absolute privacy will not be possible with CBDC, unlike with cash. Despite the Bank of Israel's openness about the low priority it places on privacy, it has suggested that people get a budget of around 1,000 digital shekels, worth around £210, to spend more freely. These private shekels will not be recorded in the same way as other CBDC transactions, but the low financial limits mean that the benefits may well be very, very limited. Uruguay's pilot on its CBDC between 2017 and 2018 saw limited enthusiasm and low uptake amongst people, particularly amongst women and older people. It was limited to 10,000 wallets, around 20 million pesos worth of the currency. Transactions were not anonymous and were linked to mobile phone numbers, meaning that people could be identified with a legal request, while transaction data was traced through the system. With wallets being linked to mobile phones and transaction data traceable, the privacy protections for people in Uruguay were limited with the CBDC pilot. Sweden's Riksbank has been running an extensive pilot of a CBDC since 2020, focusing on the potential design and technical aspects of a future e-krona. The future e-krona will likely be token-based, meaning it will be represented by virtual tokens on your phone or tablet, and will likely run on a blockchain a bit like Bitcoin. Although the wallets will only be identified by a random alphanumeric string. These strings will be linked to a customizable username, which will make it easier to find the right person to send money to, but will also make the wallets much more identifiable. Privacy protections are moved to be on a par with the retail banking, meaning that the e-krona will be much less confidential than cash, and transactions will be traceable. However, Swedish financial privacy laws mean that a legal request will be required before the pseudonymisation can be lifted.
After a 3-week delay, Nigeria's digital currency is now legal tender.
Nigeria's e-Naira was rolled out in September 2022 after a brief pilot. It's estimated that 6% of all Nigerians do have a CBDC wallet, but the vast majority of these have not been used. Privacy is a major concern with Nigeria's CBDC. Nigerians can access a range of different wallets with higher holding and transaction limits, which depend on the level of ID they have given to open this wallet. At the basic level, a phone number can be used to open a wallet with a daily transaction limit equivalent to around £20.
When I log on after 40 minutes and I'm not getting the access, it gives me some level of concern.
To go beyond this, to have a daily limit worth £50, the wallet must be linked to a national identity number, which is derived from a biometric database, while even higher limits require the CBDC wallet to be linked to a bank account for further identity checks. It is an account-based CBDC, meaning the balances in the wallet are numbers on a screen backed by the bank, and there are no virtual tokens or holdings representing the money. Despite the mass rollout, the Bank of Nigeria has not published much information about the privacy protections offered to Nigerians using the CBDC, and Chris have expressed serious concerns about whether the bank can uphold substantial privacy protections. Poor explicit privacy protections and low uptake despite a hard currency crisis in Nigeria. The EU area has serious warnings for the risks a CBDC could pose to our human rights.
You know my views on CBDCs, and you know that I have pushed that project.
The European Union's digital euro is one of the most extensively documented CBDC projects, despite just being in the early research phase. Due to this early phase, there isn't much out about how it will definitely work, but the European Commission and the European Central Bank have said a lot about how the digital euro will operate in principle. The European Central Bank has already said that full anonymity is not a viable option with the digital euro, despite European citizens placing really high emphasis on privacy in a consultation about the CBDC. Know Your Customer checks will be in place for the digital euro, meaning that privacy will roughly on par with a retail bank, and authorities will be able to access data with a legal request. However, the European Central Bank says it will only have access to aggregated data, not personal level data at the central bank level. The Eurozone may well see a split in privacy protections for online and offline payments, with Europeans withdrawing digital euros into offline accounts that could be spent with greater privacy protection. And this would show up in the same way an ATM withdrawal shows up in a bank statement now. Offline transactions would likely have a limit though, and this is in the context of the European Parliament backing a ban on anonymous cash payments over €7,000 earlier this year.
The ECB will only start with small amounts. We will not be able to have more than 3,000 or 4,000 in the bank. It will actually not make much of a difference for the consumer. If you want the digital euro to mimic cash as much as possible, you need to make an effort to make it as anonymous as possible. And here the ECB is telling us that they are going to have anonymity for small levels of payments, but as you start paying bigger amounts of money, it will no longer be anonymous.
The political context in Europe means that officials are probably paid more heed to privacy than other CBDC projects have. However, the lesson from Europe is clear. Even when people pay attention to these values, a CBDC is much less private than cash.
Welcome back. It's time now for the business day. Come early next year, Jamaicans who prefer a cashless lifestyle will be given another option to do business with the rollout of the Bank of Jamaica's Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC.
Jamaica was the first country on earth to fully roll out its CBDC, Jamdex. But despite this world-first status, very little concrete information has been published about how it works. Jamdex wallets are linked to a bank account, meaning that privacy is necessarily limited. And there are plans to link these wallets to Jamaica's incoming national ID system, which means that anonymous payments will be impossible. The Bank of Jamaica states that a formal request is needed for authorities to access this transaction or wallet data, but the link of wallets to ID means that privacy can never be guaranteed. Jamdex's rollout has not been a roaring success, with fewer than 10% of Jamaicans signing up for a wallet by the summer just gone. And the central bank repeatedly offering incentives to try and encourage people to sign up for the CBDC. China's CBDC trial with the digital yuan is by far and away the biggest in the world. Transaction volumes are around 1.8 trillion yuan worth, or around £20 billion, across 120 million wallets. However, this data does contradict earlier official statements that should be treated with a hint of caution. The Chinese pilot covers 25 cities with a combined population of hundreds of millions of people. It is widely viewed as the People's Bank of China's attempt to change the private payment systems, such as WeChat and Alipay, that are dominant in the country at the moment. China is using a common two-tier CBDC model, with the People's Bank of China issuing the currency and private companies running the wallets. The key privacy principle of the Chinese CBDC is managed anonymity, with greater privacy protections for smaller transactions while complying with domestic rules on anti-terror and money laundering checks. There's limited English language information about the digital yuan, meaning it is difficult to be sure what degree privacy protections are available. The People's Bank of China states that by default, only de-identified information will be available to the authorities unless a legal request is made. In an authoritarian country with a poor human rights record, the rule of law is always in question. And that means we must consider these factors when learning lessons from China's CBDC trial. Cities in China are already using the CBDC to nudge behaviour, with some offering cash incentives to sign up to the digital yuan. Shanghai has gone even further and is offering CBDC bonuses to people who choose to use greener forms of public transport. This is evidence of how CBDC could be used to nudge our behaviour, even if these examples appear benign at the moment. Big Brother Watch is concerned that the benefit for CBDC is tenuous and the harms are all but guaranteed. CBDCs encourage surveillance by design, generate vast amounts of personal data and threaten to introduce programmable money. They risk intruding on the public's financial privacy on a scale we have never seen before. Introducing a new digital pound would also exacerbate financial exclusion, disproportionately impacting people who already shoulder the brunt of digital and financial inequalities. The digital pound is tied to digital identity. People who are not able to or do not want to identify themselves with digital methods could be locked out of ways to access the economy. Just as with international CBDC projects, the government has not shown why a digital pound is necessary, especially given the slew of risks. Our research has shown that a CBDC poses risks to our privacy, to equalities and to financial exclusion. The best thing the government can do is scrap these proposals and go back to the drawing board. Big Brother Watch is the first organisation in the UK to raise the alarm about CBDC from a human rights perspective. You can get involved by donating to Big Brother Watch or heading to the link in the description, nospycoin.co.uk, to read the report and find out more.
Hi, I'm Silky Carlo, Director of Big Brother Watch. We rely on supporters just like you to help our relentless battle against surveillance and censorship. Please head to the description in this video to see a link to our donation page. Every penny you give goes directly to our campaigns to defend freedom. If you like this video, please remember to comment, like and subscribe to our channel.